Hello, everyone, and welcome to Invertebrate Investigations with Butterfly Pavilion. My name is Kayla, and I'm very excited that y'all can join us today. We're going to be talking about the magnificent monarch migration. Monarch butterflies are really incredible animals, and we're going to learn a little bit about their migration and how they survive, how they're able to travel so far. Just a few housekeeping things. If you are joining in, you are going to be muted and your camera is off, but we do have the Q&A box. If you're on a desktop computer, you will need to move your mouse over to the screen so that the options pop up. Should be along the bottom of your screen. And if you're on a phone or a tablet, you just tap the screen to get it to come up. And so feel free to pop those questions in there. If I don't see them right away, I promise I will get to them. So if you are not familiar with Butterfly Pavilion, we are a invertebrate zoo, and we're located in Westminster, Colorado. It's about 20-minute drive north of Denver. So if you're ever in the area, please come and see us. But if you're not, glad you can join us virtually. And like I said, we are an invertebrate zoo. We showcase all the incredible animals in the world that do not have bones. And that makes up about 97% of all animal life on Earth. So that's quite a few animals. We think they're really awesome. Such incredible biodiversity when it comes to invertebrates. They can be found at the tops of mountains. They can be found at the bottom of the ocean. They can be found in your own backyard. And maybe this time of year, since it's getting chilly, you might even find them in your house. They're coming in because they want to stay all nice and warm and snuggly with you when it's cold. So today we're going to be talking about monarch butterflies. And so on the screen, I do have some pinned monarchs. They are pretty easy to identify. They've got very distinctive colors and patterns with that bright orange and the black veins, and then with these white spots. When they close their wings, they're a little, not quite as bright. So on the outside of those wings, they're still orange, but a little bit paler. But when they open those wings up, got that gorgeous, vibrant orange color. And it's also really easy to tell the males from the females. So the males have these little spots on their hind wings, whereas the females do not. But they are really, really gorgeous butterflies. Pretty distinctive, easy to identify. And we do have a couple hundred in our butterfly house right now. We released them about a week ago. And so again, if you are in the area and want to come see them, please do. They're a lot of fun. They are some of the friendlier butterflies I've noticed. They're not terribly frightened of us. They don't really see us as a threat. And so they will come and just kind of get all up in your business, which is kind of fun if you like butterflies up in your face. So when it comes to their migration, so lots of animals migrate. It's not just monarchs. And migration is any sort of seasonal movement from one habitat to another. And so again, birds migrate, mammals migrate, fish migrate, butterflies, all kinds of insects, dragonflies will migrate. And they're migrating because they need resources that they cannot find, either because of the time of year. So those resources can be anything from food, water, space, safe spaces to have and raise offspring. Maybe we're just looking for nicer weather and things like that. So our monarchs, because it is November now, they should all be down in Mexico, hopefully. Hopefully they've all made it down there. So they tend to spend their winters in Michoacan, Mexico, which is in kind of central Mexico on the west coast. And they have been traveling down there since before we were recording this information. And they're going to spend the winter down there. So there are a type of fir tree called oyamel firs. And so they can snuggle up in these trees and stay warm. So here are some photos. It looks like the trees are almost like furry because they're covered in just millions and millions of butterflies. And while they're there, they're not doing a whole lot. So even though it is warmer in Mexico than it is in, like, say, the United States or Canada during the winter, it still is a little chilly for butterflies. Most butterflies, you need to be about a minimum 55 degrees Fahrenheit in order to fly around, but they do generally prefer it much warmer than that. So while they're in Mexico, even though it is warmer down there, they're still going to go into something called diapause. so that they can survive the winter. So very similar to hibernation. Their metabolic rate is going to fall. They're not eating. They're not moving around a whole lot. They're just staying snuggled up in that tree. So some differences between diapause and hibernation. Some of it is just terminology. Someone along the line decided diapause was for insects and hibernation was for mammals. Kind of the same thing is happening physically, right? The metabolic rate falls, not a whole lot going on. But diapause can happen due to any unfavorable environmental conditions. So it's not necessarily tied to the onset of cold weather. So in the case of, say, a drought, sometimes insects will go into diapause. Too hot of weather, right? Not just cold weather. Anything that is going to make life difficult for them, they kind of just shut their bodies down and will pop back up when it's in when the conditions are better for survival. And diapause for insects, it can last for days, months, even years. There are some moths that will go into diapause for several years and not come out of their cocoons until conditions are just right. And I have a video I wanted to show you. So right now, they are snuggled up for the winter, not a whole lot going on. They're pretty much just going to sleep through. But next spring, so probably about March, when it starts to warm up, we're going to have a lot more activity. So the warm weather, the sunshine will kind of pull them out of that diapause, will perk them up. So this is some great footage from PBS. And I really love it because they have this adorable little hummingbird drone camera that allowed them to get up close to the monarchs without frightening them. There's a shot of the camera. And so it's able to get really, really close to them and get up close. So you can see, again, these trees are just covered, absolutely covered in monarch butterflies. There are going to be millions of them. And I love this shot of them getting just really, really up close. And so again, you can see we're getting a little bit of movement. It's kind of right, you're a little slow in the morning. The sun's going to come up. It's going to help them wake up, help them get some energy, and then we're going to finally fly. So the areas in Mexico with these Oyamel firs is a really important habitat for them because they do need these spaces. I think last year, when they went down and recorded, it was about a football field, American football field worth of trees covered in butterflies, which is a lot of butterflies. I mean, that's going to be millions of monarchs, but ideally we want to see about 6 football fields worth of monarchs in the trees. So their numbers are declining. Currently in the United States, monarchs are not listed on the endangered species list. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has put a petition so that they would be covered under the Endangered Species Act. That just involves some more protections for them and some more resources going into their conservation. So currently, they are not on the endangered species list, but their numbers are a little concerning at this point. And look at that. This is incredible. I have never been to Mexico to see this, but I have some of my colleagues have, and they have said that it is in fact magical to see all these incredible butterflies waking up and flying around. So we fast forward to March, things are warming up. We're taking flight. And we're going to start heading north. So while Mexico is a really great space to spend the winter, it doesn't necessarily have the resources that they need to survive. So they're going to start moving north up into the United States and Canada. They are looking for food. So that would be things like wildflowers. They're looking for their host plants, which are milkweed plants, the plants they want to lay their eggs on. They're also looking for space. As you can see, in that video, millions of butterflies packed in there, and that's great for staying warm, but not so much for survival. You're going to have a lot of competition for resources. And so by moving north and spreading out, it's going to give them a much better chance to survive, as well as their offspring. So the wildflowers that we have in the Midwest, the Southeast, the Northeast, again, they're looking for all of that so that they have food and water. And then, of course, milkweed plants. So it is a multi-generational migration. So the very first generation, the one who starts the migration, they will not see the end of it. Most butterflies live about 2 to 4 weeks in the wild, so not very long, at least in their adult stage. That is long enough to find a mate and lay eggs. They can lay hundreds of eggs. And so they're making sure that the next generation of butterflies takes over. So it's about 4 generations you will see as they move north. And here's their life cycle right here. They do have very distinctive caterpillars as well. They've got those adorable black and yellow and white stripes, and almost look like they have little horns on both their front and their back end. That is to confuse predators, right? It's much better to get a little, peck on your back end than on your head where your brain is. So these little horns on their body are to confuse predators, and their bright coloration is a warning. Milkweed plants are toxic, and not a lot of animals can eat them, but monarch caterpillars have adapted to be able to eat these plants, and they take those toxins from the plant into their body themselves. So both as larvae and as adults, they've got that warning coloration. They're very brightly colored. They are warning any potential predators that you do not want to eat me. I'm going to taste bad. I may even make you sick. And then in their pupa, or their chrysalis, again, they are pretty distinctive. They kind of just look like a leaf, but they do always have these little gold bands right around the edge. So that is a way that you can distinguish a monarch chrysalis from another one, is just kind of look for that little gold band. And then of course your adults, your adults again have those orange and black and white coloration. They also have these really cute little spots on their body themselves, which is not something you see in a lot of butterflies. And then this process starts all over again. So the full life cycle, it's pretty quick. We only spend about 5 days in our egg, maybe about 2 to 5 weeks as a caterpillar, 10 to 14 days, about 2 weeks in the chrysalis, and then about 2 to 4 weeks as an adult. So another video I wanted to share, this is from National Geographic this time, is the life cycle of the monarch caterpillar. So this footage, again, from National Geographic, we're in Wisconsin. There is that little tiny monarch egg. And we're going to pop out, and they don't have their colors. They don't have those distinctive colors when they first hatch. Kind of just look like a little worm. And they're going to be very, very small. Maybe the length of, like, say, your thumbnail, maybe just a smidge longer. And the first thing they're going to do is actually eat their eggshell. That's a lot of nutrients right there. We don't want to leave those on the table. And so they're going to start eating and growing and growing and eating. And they're going to have to shed their skin each time. So as they get bigger, you can see, yeah, now we're looking a little bit more like a proper monarch caterpillar. We're big, chubby, we're eating away. That's what we want to see. That is pretty much caterpillar's main priority, is to eat as much as possible. And once we reach the right size, we're going to hang ourselves upside down, and we're going to start making our chrysalis. So you can see it's shedding its final layer of skin. And then that shell on the outside, that becomes the chrysalis. And so inside that chrysalis, something really incredible is happening. The caterpillar kind of dissolves almost and is going to reform itself, though in caterpillar stage, it already has everything it needs. If you dissect a caterpillar, you will see little tiny proto wings. So it's just got to get everything in order here. And then here is our gorgeous adult finally slipping right out. And you can see when they first come out, we're kind of wrinkly. We don't really look like a beautiful butterfly. We've got to let our wings fully expand and dry before we can fly. And there we go. Now we're stretching those wing muscles, and we can fly now. So if you do come to Butterfly Pavilion, it is really, really awesome if you're able to watch our chrysalis chamber. You may get lucky and catch someone coming out. I'm on the wrong slide. May catch someone coming out of their chrysalis. It is a really incredible thing to watch. And it does happen pretty quickly. Once they break out of that shell, they kind of just slip right out. And then they'll spend, depending on the size of a butterfly, anywhere from an hour to 3-4 hours drying and letting their wings dry. So if you ever do see a monarch in that stage, just leave it alone. When their wings are wet, they can't fly. That is the most vulnerable time in their life. If they're somewhere they shouldn't be, like on a pathway, or you think they're in danger of being stepped on, you can just very gently move them to some plants. But they want to hang. They want those wings to hang back behind them. And so throughout the spring and the summer, they're just going to keep on moving north, right? So they can get all the way up into kind of southern Canada. Here in Colorado, we're kind of on the edge of the migration. So here in Westminster, we do see a few, but we don't get a ton of monarchs in our area. They're much more going to be like through Texas, the Southeast, the Midwest, and kind of up the East Coast is where you're going to see like those really big clumps of them. But we do see monarchs, and we do plant milkweed in our gardens for them. And so we usually see a couple every summer. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 generations making it all the way. And then when things start to get cool, so end of summer, so probably around September, October, kind of that cooler weather is going to trigger them that it's time to head back to Mexico. So keep in mind that this 4th generation, they have never been to Mexico. They have never been. They were born, maybe they were born in Indiana or Pennsylvania or New York is where they hatched, but they still know where they need to go. It is instinctual for them. And another special thing about this 4th generation is even though it took about 4 generations to make it north, this last one is going to make the trip all in one go. So instead of looking for mates, spending energy and resources on reproducing, they're really just eating as much as they can and just booking it down to Mexico before the weather gets too cold for them. And they will make it all in one go. So it is really important if you do keep gardens to not just have those flowers in the spring, to have something that blooms into the late summer and even early fall, so that they have like little rest stops basically to help them on that journey. And so again, we're going to go right back down to Mexico in 1 generation, and then it starts all over again. So those that final generation that goes to Mexico, they again will go into that diapause state. They're going to overwinter, and then the next spring, they are the ones who will start it again. So migration, just like travel for humans, travel for butterflies can be a little fraught sometimes. There are some problems along the way. So bad weather is a big one. Not really much you could do about that, but when you're a tiny insect with little tissue paper wings, even a little bit of rain means you got to stop. And so you will see them sometimes taking shelter, like maybe under your porch or in your plants. But there are some human-caused problems. So habitat loss is a big one. So losing those wildflower fields, losing those spaces for them to shelter can be a really big problem for them if they don't have food along the way. Loss of water, also loss of host plants. Milkweed doesn't have a whole lot of benefits for humans. We can't really eat it. The flowers are pretty, but it's not something like, especially in agricultural areas, people don't usually want those in the middle of, like, say, your cornfield. But they need those host plants. The caterpillars have to eat milkweed. And so a way to help them is by providing those host plants for them. And then pesticides are a big thing. Now, they're not intended for butterflies. They are for actual pests that can cause problems in our food supply. But they don't, like tell the difference between, say, a grasshopper that is going to destroy our crops versus a butterfly that is going to pollinate them. So pesticides are a really big concern, but there are ways that we can help them. It's not all bad news. So one thing is just provide food and water. So that's planting flowers in your yard, providing little shallow water dishes for them so that they have, again, it's like a little rest stop for them. Wherever you are in the country, you want to make sure you're planting native flowers. So again, what you're going to plant in Colorado would be very different than what you would plant in, say, Georgia or Florida. But quick Google search can help you find those native plants. Those are also going to do best in whatever your climate is. So it's pretty dry and hot in Colorado. So something that would thrive in Florida is not necessarily going to do well here. So just do your research. But then you also get to enjoy those beautiful flowers. Another thing is to plant milkweed. Again, that's going to draw them to your yard too. So if you're wanting to see them, they're going to be looking for those plants. And milkweed, especially showy milkweed, does have these beautiful kind of pinky purple blooms. They're really pretty, and they're going to encourage those monarchs to visit your yard. And then choosing natural pest management. So choosing to avoid pesticides and herbicides. The easiest way to actually discourage pests in your garden is by making it a good habitat for things like spiders and praying mantises and dragonflies, your natural predators. They're going to eat those pests. So again, by having lots of plants, shady areas, shallow water dishes. It's going to encourage all kinds of animal life in your space. And you will have some of those natural pest regulators move in as well. So orb weaver spiders, if you're seeing those, praying mantises, these are all fantastic friends to have in your yard, and they're going to help you kind of take care of the pests. So natural pest management, it usually is a little more work, but it's going to be better, not just for the monarch butterflies, but for all of the insects that may come to visit you. If you're wanting to get a little more involved beyond just, just planting flowers, you can also look at community science. So the information that we have gathered from organizations like Monarch Watch and Journey North and the Monarch Larva Monitoring Project has helped scientists track butterflies. So with Monarch Watch and Journey North, that is a tagging system where you very gently capture the butterfly, you put a little sticker on its wings, you make note of the number on the sticker, like the little ID number, when you found it, where you were at, and then you upload that to the database so that when the scientists who are in Mexico right now checking those butterflies, if they find a tagged one, they can go look up its number and say, hey, this one came from Westminster, Colorado. We know that it successfully traveled that far. And so that's how we get information on how far they're traveling, how many are coming through at any point, where are these paths, these migration paths that they take. So if they naturally congregate in certain areas, that gives us information. Okay, we need to make sure that we're protecting the habitats and the plants in these areas. And then with Monarch larva monitoring, that is looking specifically for caterpillars. And that's just basically going out and counting caterpillars and submitting how many you've found, which is pretty fun. So there are lots of others too. These are the three that I always recommend that I'm familiar with, but there are lots of ways that you can support. And then some exciting news this year from Butterfly Pavilion. We did receive a grant to plant 100,000 oyamel firs in the forests where they migrate. So we worked with the government of Mexico. We worked with some community partners down in Michoacan to try and reforest this area so that the trees are there for them, so that they can have more space in the winter. So supporting organizations like Butterfly Pavilion, like the Xerxes Society, that is going to help support them as well. And if you ever have the opportunity to go down to Mexico to see them, highly recommend you do it. Again, I haven't been, but I've heard it is incredible, and I'm hoping one day to get down there. All right, so let's see. I'm going to check the Q&A box. Looks like I don't have any questions. We do have just a few minutes left, so feel free to pop those questions in there. If you're wanting to know anything. One thing I really love about monarchs is just kind of the mysteries around them. We still don't 100% understand how the ones that have never been to Mexico know how to get there. We think they're kind of looking at potentially the magnetic field of the Earth. That they're tracking it. Some insects do navigate using stars, so using stellar navigation. We think for the monarchs, they're kind of following the magnetic fields of the planet. But again, we don't completely understand how they know how to migrate. So for any of my young scientists who are tuning in, maybe you'll be the one to find out. You can study them, and maybe you'll be the one to discover the secrets of our amazing monarchs. All right, everyone. Well, I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining. As always, this video will be available on our YouTube channel as well. Hopefully we'll have it up by the end of the day, maybe tomorrow at the latest. And do keep an eye on our website for any future virtual events. And again, if you're able to come see our monarchs in person, please do. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful, there is one question. Just a thank you. Thank you so much for joining. So I hope I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.